You will hear a conversation between a sociology student who is doing research on the town's new community centre and a resident. First, you have some time to look at questions 1 to 5. You will see that there is an example that has been done for you. On this occasion only, the conversation relating to this will be played first.
Hi, good afternoon, sir. Excuse me? Could you spare a minute, please?
Oh, hello. Sorry, I was in a world of my own. I didn't hear you there.
No problem. My name's Katie, and I'm a second-year sociology student. We're doing a research project on the importance of community centres to local residents. May I ask, are you a resident of Malton?
The answer is community centres. So, community centres has been written in the space. Now we shall begin. You should answer the questions as you listen, because you will not hear the recording a second time. Listen carefully and answer questions 1 to 5.
Hi, good afternoon, sir. Excuse me? Could you spare a minute, please?
Oh, hello. Sorry, I was in a world of my own. I didn't hear you there.
No problem. My name's Katie, and I'm a second-year sociology student. We're doing a research project on the importance of community centres to local residents. May I ask, are you a resident of Malton?
Yes, I am.
That's perfect. Would you mind answering some questions about the facilities you use? It won't take very long.
Of course. I'd be happy to answer any questions you have. Far away.
Great. OK, the first questions are to do with you. So can I ask how old you are? We need to know for statistical purposes later.
Well, I'd like to say 16, but I'm 59. 60 next week, in fact.
Oh, congratulations for next week. Now I just need your postcode and then we'll get started.
Right. Well, that's an easy one. It's HA87UP.
7A8 HQP. Was that right?
No, my dear. It's HA87UP.
Right. OK. Sorry for the confusion.
That's quite all right. Now, what about these questions?
Yes, let's get started. So, one of the most important things we need to know is which of the facilities you already use.
Right, OK.
OK. What about computer facilities? Do you currently use public computers anywhere in town?
Yes, I do. I go to my local library.
Great. Just jotting that down. OK. What about local sports facilities?
Yes, I get down to the swimming pool at least twice a week.
And education facilities? Are you currently attending any courses?
Yes, I go to Spanish classes every Friday at the Further Education College.
That's great. I must say, you're very active.
Before you hear the rest of the conversation, you have some time to look at questions 6 to 10. Now listen and answer questions 6 to 10.
OK, we're halfway through. The next bit is all about how the community centre could be improved, if at all, that is.
I see. Well, I'll give it a go.
Well, firstly, I'd like to find out your views on sports facilities. Which sports do you think the community centre should offer that it doesn't already?
Well, I'm not going to say swimming, as there's no point having 2 pools in a town of this size. Let me think. What about yoga? I know it's very popular these days. Yes, yoga and badminton. I used to play, you know.
Really?
Yes, and I was quite good, though I'm probably a bit rusty now. It's been years.
OK. Do you think the classes should be split into groups?
Yes, that's a good idea. I know that if there were classes only for pensioners, I'd definitely be more likely to play. I'm not as fast as I once was, you know.
OK, I'll just write that down. Great. Now we're nearly done. I just need to ask you some questions about education. What kind of classes do you think the centre should offer that it doesn't already?
Well, I suppose the kind of thing that's no longer offered at the local college. Things like arts and crafts. Those kinds of classes have now closed as they weren't financially viable, apparently.
Yes, I heard about that. It was such a shame. Those kinds of classes are so important for the psychological well-being of those most vulnerable in a community. OK, I've written that down. Now I need to ask you whether you would be willing to pay for any of the services we were just talking about.
As long as it wasn't too much, I have nothing against contributing. Something like £2 per class seems like a reasonable rate for an old man like me.
OK, and lastly then, I just need to know how regularly you think you will use the new facilities, if the community centre makes the changes you have suggested.
Well, I'd say 3 times a week, which is more than I go at the moment. I only bother on Mondays and Wednesdays, as there's nothing else on during the week that interests me. But I would definitely get out of the house more if they were to make those kinds of changes.
That is the end of section 1. You now have half a minute to check your answers. Section 2. You will hear a tour guide taking people around the Sydney Observatory. First, you have some time to look at questions 11 to 15. Now listen and answer questions 11 to 15.
Could I have your attention, please? Gather round, gather round. My name is Patricia, and I'll be your guide around the Sydney Observatory. Now, as you all will know, man has been interested in the night sky for a very long time. Indeed, before the invention of the compass, it was used by sailors to navigate their way across the world's oceans. A kind of star map, you could say. Now, the site of the museum on Observatory Hill has its own interesting story. Before the colonisers arrived, it belonged to the Cadigal people, who may have even viewed the arrival of the new visitors from here, as this is the highest natural point in Sydney Harbour. The early Europeans then built a windmill on the site, though it didn't last for long due to its exposed position. A little while after that, the land was used to build a fort, which was to finally become the observatory that you see before you today. Now, let's take a look inside. To the left of the main entrance is the cloakroom, where you can leave your coats and bags. But please make sure you don't leave any mobiles or valuables, as staff cannot be held responsible. The museum is open during the day until 5 p.m, so please collect belongings no later than 5:15, and please vacate the building by 5:30. No new admissions will be allowed after 4:30 p.m. After you've left your personal items, you'll need to buy your tickets from the ticket desk immediately behind you, before continuing on the rest of the tour. The normal price is $8 for an adult and $6 for a child, though groups of up to 4 people can save money by buying a family ticket. This must contain at least 1 adult and 1 child, but no more than 2 children per adult. I'll wait for you on the other side of the ticket barrier by the coffee shop while you all get your ticket.
Before you hear the rest of the tour, you have some time to look at questions 16 to 20. Now listen and answer questions 16 to 20.
So, I hope you enjoyed the tour. But before I leave you, I just want to draw your attention to one more thing. Your observatory ticket also entitles you to visit another of Sydney's famous sites at a 50% discount. You'll find lots on to keep the children entertained. For example, they've got sound workshops where you can have a go at being a DJ. This is called the Sound House, and you'll find it up on the 2nd floor, just after the kids' playground. Look for signs for the Vector Lab workshops if you get lost. For those of you interested in fashion and design, the Lace Study Centre should not be missed. You'll get the chance to look at one of the country's best collections all in one place. However, like most museums, only a fraction of their collections are actually on display. But in the museum's unique Discovery Centre, you can take the opportunity to go behind the scenes and see parts of the collection that are not on display. All of these attractions can be found under one roof at Sydney's famous Powerhouse Museum. I do hope you are able to go and enjoy the experience. You won't be disappointed.
That is the end of section 2. You now have half a minute to check your answers. You will hear a tutor talking to a student about a future assignment. First, you have some time to look at questions 21 to 25. Now listen carefully and answer questions 21 to 25.
Hi, Professor James. Have you got a minute? You see, I'm having a bit of trouble getting started on my graduate employability assignment.
Well, Okay, as long as it doesn't take longer than 10 minutes, as I have a meeting to get to at 3:30.
Yep, fine. It shouldn't take long at all.
Okay, Sally. Tell me what you've done so far, and we'll go from there.
Well, as you suggested, I chose 3 local businesses and contacted them via telephone to introduce myself.
That's good.
Well, the thing is, I couldn't get past the secretary of 2 of them. Do you have any suggestions?
What about following up with a letter stating what time you'll be calling again?
Oh, that's a good idea. I hadn't thought of that.
So, tell me about the one you have contacted.
Right. Well, he was very helpful, actually. He received the survey I emailed him and has already sent it back. I've had a very quick look at it, but haven't had a chance to write it up yet.
So far, so good. Carry on.
Well, apart from that, I've also found a lot of statistics that exist on the starting salaries graduates begin on once they finish studying. There's some really interesting stuff out there. Did you know, for example, that your average engineer earns nearly as much as a medical graduate?
Yes, I did.
Gosh, I had no idea.
Having second thoughts about a career in human resources, are we?
No, but I was surprised. Anyway, getting back to where I was, I've gone to the library, but the books you recommend have already been taken out. Apart from one, that is. It's called A Starting Success. I haven't read it yet, but I've taken it out and it's on my list of things to do.
Have you come up with a plan yet?
Yes, and I've written my hypothesis as well as my introduction, but that's where I've got stuck. I don't really know how I'm going to be able to present all of the information, as there's so much of it.
Before you hear the rest of the conversation, you have some time to look at questions 26 to 30. Now listen and answer questions 26 to 30.
Well, firstly, I'd recommend you start with analyzing what the employer said. Now, can I have a look at the questionnaire you wrote?
Yes, here it is.
Thanks. Oh, dear. Well, it's no wonder you're overwhelmed with information. You've collected a lot of information which can be overwhelming.
Oh dear, that took me ages. And does that mean I can't use it?
Afraid so. But don't worry, if you've got a pen and paper, I'll quickly give you some pointers, and then you can rejig it to get the information you're looking for.
Okay, just a minute. I know there's a pen in here somewhere. Okay, got it.
Right. Well, first and foremost, you need to be clear. There's no point having a beautifully worded document throughout that no one understands. Use language that is simple.
Right, got that. What next?
You need to catch the reader's attention at the start of the document. And you need to find the right balance between formal and informal language. Your survey isn't an official document, but more of a living one that serves a purpose. So neutral language is best.
Okay, just writing that down. Okay.
The next one's what your mistake was this time. Try not to use open-ended questions, or you'll find it impossible to collate your results.
Yep, I think I've learned my lesson there. What else?
Scales really do make the job of completing the questionnaire easier for the recipients by saving them lots of time and effort writing.
I take your point. Anything else?
One last thing. Make sure you've thought about the logic of your questions. There's nothing worse than trying to make choices about things that seem to have no order.
Right. Got it. I see where I went wrong now, and will try to do better next time.
Don't worry. It's a very easy mistake to make, and one that many people come across the first time they do this kind of assignment. Okay, Sally, I really must rush. I'm late for my appointment.
Of course. Thanks for your help. I'll see you in class tomorrow. Bye.
That is the end of section 3. You now have half a minute to check your answers. You will hear part of a talk about a training scheme in a private company. First, you have some time to look at questions 31 to 40. Now listen carefully and answer questions 31 to 40.
Good afternoon to you all. My name's Diana Simpson, and I'm from the City Business Forum. I'm managing director of a firm of accountants which employs over 2,000 people here and abroad. I'd like to thank you for coming today, and I'd like to thank Professor Beacon for inviting me here to talk to you today about an example of a training scheme to create a happy workforce, which we are trying to promote as a model of good practice. Before I say something about our training scheme, I'd like to tell you a little bit about business values and the values of our company. When people think of business, they often mistakenly think of money and profits, and at times businessmen and women have a negative press. However, business is not all bad. Not just about making profits, though there is no denying that this is important. It is about creating something, often out of nothing, building it up from scratch. And an obvious plus is that business is about providing new employment opportunities that in turn enrich people's lives. It is also about bringing people together and making links and contributing to the economy of the country. But in doing so, our accountancy firm adheres to a strict ethical code. We have set ourselves high standards, and we seek to improve the communities we work within by returning some of the profits back into those communities. The training scheme I'd like to talk about is one we have been developing within our company for the past 7 years. At the beginning of the training scheme, before I actually became managing director of the company, we had, like many companies, staff meetings and training sessions which were conducted by staff in-house on financial matters. But the training scheme has evolved almost naturally to its present state using minimal resources. Initially, we allocated a certain number of hours per year for staff to follow their own training by company trainers paid for by the company. This was delivered in-house once a fortnight during office hours at different times of the day, including early morning and late evening. This development worked very well with courses being offered on languages, stress busting, arts and crafts, and physical exercise. Vouchers or discounts were also offered to staff to go to local gyms, and some staff members formed their own running and swimming clubs. As the scheme has further evolved, We have actively encouraged staff in our company to aim for personal fulfillment and not just to focus on their professional development. About 18 months ago, we decided to devote more time to training by giving each full-time worker 2 hours a week for training and a proportionate amount for part-time workers. A further development has been that some of the more experienced staff decided to use the time they were allocated to give training free of charge to various organizations who need professional help. And the results of the company's move from professional development on work-related matters to a focus on staff happiness? Well, quite frankly, they are startling. Staff absences? Well, the number of staff absences from sickness have been reduced substantially. A 25% decline, as you can see from the bar chart here. The fact that working hours have been reduced has not affected productivity. Actually, it is the reverse. Company profits have increased with a rise of 15%. So the company profits are in a healthy state now. But the most important impact on the company as a whole has been the drop in staff turnover. All companies, large or small, have some staff turnover, but we have managed to reduce hours by a whopping 90%. The knock-on effect has been reduced recruitment costs and the expense on training new staff with a further impact on profitability. We are looking at other ways of developing this further and promoting the model as a means of good practice.
That is the end of section 4. You now have half a minute to check your answers.